in terms of preparation and understanding, I think Posesi's up there with the best of them. He's consistently bringing, I think, the best tech that we're seeing out of the Asia Pacific players. The archetypes you could argue on, because this Quest Warlock is definitely uh, an anomaly, to say the least, for this week. But if he's expecting, say, the aggressive meta for the week when there's a lot of Shaman and Paladin, then he'll be bringing bees in his Druid. It just makes sense every time I look at Posesi lineups, and his plays back it up.
It really, really do. But first of all, Chia, in the first match that we're going to get to see, it is going to be a perfect demonstration of Posesi's Warlock there. We took a spotlight at it at the start of the day. It is the Quest Warlock, which we have seen already in Grandmasters from his opponent in Ryvius a couple of weeks ago, where it just took a very swift win and then disappeared forever into the mist. But it now has reappeared here for Posesi. And it is still just a big question mark, I think, for me and you included. This is a weird deck.
Yep, the image you put in my mind of a deck resurfacing from the void, sense with the icon that we see for Warlock. It's coming back from the dead. Quest Warlock after Zoo has been put in its nerf zone. We are now going to see just what I believe is a very inconsistent deck, but has potential, as you said, to be good against aggro because it's running all of this removal, and at the same time be a bane of Priest, which, if you're in another region, I think is a very good ring.
Yeah, we'll get into it a little bit more when the match comes around, because it is going to be against the Demon Hunter as the first match of the day. But as for the other two decks here for Ryvius, this is as standard as it can get. The same of what we saw from Surrender, obviously, in the previous series. I wouldn't be all too surprised at all if he was practicing with Chonsu and Surrender, all of whom have ended up with the same lineup, as we are seeing the countries banding together here when they're not up against each other.
Indeed. Ryvius is probably, I don't want to say black sheep, but he's just not afraid to deviate from whatever the meta dictates. So it's surprising to me that in this post-nerfs meta, where there's probably the most room for innovation, he's actually gone with the more standard lineup, and instead we're seeing Posesi do the thing that's off the wall. So if Ryvius is still thinking that it's good enough to bring the 4 best decks, I think he's got a very good reason for it. I need to look at the text because I do think he was a proponent of questing adventure at the time in Demon Hunter, but nope, it is just the same old, same old.
And this is, I think, a trap that I commonly fall into with the players who bring slightly weirder stuff compared to their compatriots. Like Ryvius, of course, Shaxi, Staz also kind of falls into that camp to me. They don't bring it for the sake of it. They don't bring weird decks because they like weird decks. They bring them because they think they're the best. Ryvius in particular, you can just tell he was slightly ahead of the curve with Quest Warlock. Now we're seeing it a lot more. He was ahead of the curve with Ysera Unleashed in Druid, where he was the first player to put that in. And just because he thinks it's the best, and if he thinks that the standard decks, the most common lineup, is the best, he's going to go with that instead. He is just a player with a slightly different spin on the metagame, but he has ended up in the same place this week.
That's true. I think that Ryvius puts the work in, he does the testing, and none of it is done just to be flashy. So for now, it's back to basics, and Battlefiend Satyr Overseer seems like the bread and butter that gets the job done.
So as for the start now, Ryvius, obviously keeping the Battlefiend and Satyr Overseer. It's one of those cards that demands an answer, which against control decks have typically been some of the strongest cards in Hearthstone. I'm thinking back to the likes of a Vicious Fledgling back in the day as just a must-remove minion, of which Satyr Overseer, I think, falls into the same camp.
I miss old Fledgling. I always got the Wind Fury.
I never got Wind Fury. I hate that card.
We're also seeing the Worgen Infiltrator inclusion from Ryvius, just like in Chonsu's list. Probably not so useful in this matchup because the low health total on it seems to fall prey to Dark Skies and Rain of Fire. But still useful to shore up the curve for Ryvius here. Gonna send it face immediately, knowing that it is liable to get removed in the near future, so might as well cash in the damage now. You're not looking to hopefully save it for a good trade, unlike in the mirror.
Absolutely. Warlock is all about area of effect removal at the moment, be it the Crazed Netherwing, Dark Skies, Rain of Fire, a million different ways to kill off the Worgen, so I love getting it in now. And while at the moment, this is very clearly functioning as a straight-up aggro deck here for Ryvius, This should be, according to what I'm hearing from the pro players, the kind of matchup that Posesi is happy to see, because even though he's taking a right beating in the early game, he can one card swing this back into his favor.
It is so clean. Only 7 damage developed onto the board. Rain of Fire would have dealt 8 there. If you look at the card text, it is the number of cards in hand plus 1.
But this is where Demon Hunter falls into its own weird camp gear, because it's not just a pure aggro deck. It just keeps going and going and going. And I feel like that is something that this Warlock could suffer against, because even though it has fantastic removal, fantastic healing, it doesn't have that much of its own development, which means if Demon Hunter is under no pressure, it could just go and go forever.
That is true, given if they keep drawing their skulls and so on, you would actually just have to remove every single card in their deck, and some of those are weapons. But for Posesi, I think that he's under not too much pressure at the moment. This will draw him at least one Aranasi Broodmother. Since Demons is the new inclusion for tech here, it can draw either the Broodmothers or the Moarg, but using Rain of Fire there is potentially huge, because he might have wanted to use the Moarg Rain of Fire to deal with more development.
Yeah, I mean, we could have seen that right there, actually, just to clear off the board and develop a little something. Ooh.
Wow.
So now we're starting to see the curve come into effect here. It could be tap Dark Skies into the Abyssal Summoner. Seems like a decent curve.
Yeah, I can see that. There's also, I was going to say an option of using the Summoner now, but that seems really bad into a Warglaves. But the draw of Nether Breath is absolutely huge, because now if Ryvius develops something, Posesi can heal right back up for 8. Essentially, the 16 with both of the Moargs. Is that how it works?
Disgusting. That is exactly how it works, Gia.
Oh my god.
I think unless you're expecting to die on this turn, you could probably get away with the Abyssal Summoner, but instead Posesi is just saying, you know what? We're going to be rich. Let's go up to effectively full health here and just reset the game.
I didn't know this was Reno Lock.
Apparently
but
so.
Whoa. Look at this Altruist. Not this turn, but Ryvius could potentially go for a huge swing instead.
I think as it currently stands, we're looking at Skull, or you're in a very bad situation now, Posesi.
It is true. But there is a chance, whereas it seemed like there was hardly any.
There is a chance. And of course, for Ryvius on the other side, these Moargs can work to his advantage. A I-Beam would heal for 12 all of a sudden and just obliterate anything that's played onto the board, which does, of course, disincentivize Posesi from actually playing his Abyssal Summoner.
That's right. And because Ryvius has potential to heal so much and Posesi himself is not developing, we could just see Ryvius chill for a few turns until he gets Skull. He's under not so much pressure whatsoever, but Posesi has a strange option here of Rain of Fire his own board away and then develop the Abyssal Summoner. Maybe that's a bit too crazy for me.
I think I prefer the look of just going for a shuffle in now with the plot twist.
Sure. We'll back up some more. Oh, good old Worthless Imp.
I'd never actually seen that interaction where you draw one demon and get one Worthless Imp before, but I guess it makes sense.
Quest is now activated for Posesi. There's a lot of huge cards that he could discount. There's Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, there's Malygos, even another Abyssal Summoner or Aranasi Broodmother.
Yeah, the Broodmothers alone are just absolutely insane. And now, even though Ryvius has the ability to clear off this board, it's just not game-winning, and it's not even that close.
I think this turn is a straight-up pass from Ryvius.
Are you just playing for the pseudo OTK with Skull into Skull?
Do you see a better plan, Derek? I'm not sure what this gets done. If you just go Altruist now, it 100% gets dealt with one way or another. And then he has nothing to deal with Posesi's follow-up development, because by then it'll be turn 9, which is when Posesi can actually start playing his threats.
Yeah, I mean, I think whether you go for it or not, you are all in on hitting the Skull off the top anyway. And this, at the very least, clears off the board and makes it so he possibly has a bit more time before he has to hit the skull.
I don't know about the timing of this. I feel that on turn 8, Posesi still just wants to be clearing rather than developing. Maybe if Ryvius had gone for it into the Alexstrasza turn, that makes it a little bit more awkward for Posesi.
Abyssal Summon Nether Breath looks like a perfectly decent play on this turn.
Oh yeah.
You are not getting through this in a million years.
Mini Kronks for you. Not even close to a skull. Ryvius is not dead, but he will be very soon.
He's just sitting there thinking, oh, why didn't I bring Quest Warlock again? The best deck in the game, and I was the original. Why am I playing this garbage?
So Posesi's only concern here is what if there is Metamorphosis or Skull into Metamorphosis off the top? Can he die to a combination of over 2 turns, Metamorphosis and Cleave down? Woo!
Is that just lethal? Oh no, it's not quite yet. But that is
if you get Soul
close
Fire
already to lethal.
I mean, you could just plot twist to get. Oh! Soul Fire face, plot twist for the other. No, it's just Soul Fire and Nether Breath, right? I mean, Nether Wing. Sorry.
That's just
not
lethal.
Quite yet. Very close.
You can go with the Rain of Fire as well.
Oh yeah. That does do damage to all characters, not just minions. And the Malagos survives all of that to finally deal the Soul Fire for lethal.
That's one way to close out a game of Hearthstone. I think it was pretty much already won anyway. But that does, of course, deserve a clap from Ryvius there. And Posesi is looking much more on form this week. That, I think, was just screamed Posesi to me. It was just very straightforward. Nothing too fancy there, but just every single turn, getting rid of everything your opponent plays and just putting yourself in such a good spot.
He's just rubbing his hands together like it is another day of Hearthstone, whereas Ryvius is given the salty clap, my favorite, of the APAC Grandmasters emotes. We've seen the look left from Surrender, but we've also seen the salty clap from him. But I don't think it is all bad news for Ryvius. He's got most of the same decks remaining. It is just a difference of he has Hunter in place of that Warlock for Posesi. Could still see some Druid mirrors in the future, and that I feel has potential to go very wrong.
It does indeed. And I feel like the Hunter is still just in a pretty good spot overall. Against the Warlock, I feel like it's the kind of aggro deck that's going to have a little bit more chance to get the job done, because it has the burst that is very important against Warlock, as well as just the mid-game punch that Warlock may not be able to get over the finish line against. But before we can see that, we are, of course, after every game one, going to have to go to a quick break. But when we come back, the conclusion of Ryvius versus Posesi, can he get that win on the table to get himself up to the top with the rest of the Japanese players, or is it going to be Ryvius climbing up in terms of the leaderboard? We'll be right back with the conclusion of this series.
Meet Clark Cluckerberg. 998. 999. 1,000. Why did she leave me? We were so good together. I don't think that translates well in Mandarin. I want to be a real chicken. Why does everyone get to be a real chicken but me? Now you. Tell me the truth. You can't handle the truth!
Why so aggressive?
Okay, you guys are pretty good. I guess we can just turn this into a regular interview since everyone clearly here is not going to laugh. So I had this idea for a deck. In week 1 of Grandmasters,
This is Hearthstone Grandmasters, and right now it is Posesi versus Ryvius, a grudge match of the 2 top countries here in Hearthstone Grandmasters. For the Asia-Pacific region, Japan; for Posesi, and for Ryvius, South Korea. At the moment, it does definitely look, Gia, like Japan is top dog here, but potentially now with a chance for Ryvius to turn things around with the best deck in the game, the Quest Warlock, out of the way.
True enough. It does mean, though, that Posesi has access to one of the other best decks in the game, no sarcasm included, in Demon Hunter versus Ryvius's Highlander Hunter. And we did see this matchup go the other way around last series, but I do think that Demon Hunter, in most cases, has the favor.
Yeah, and it's worth saying, I think, that it was one of the better hands we've seen for the Highlander Hunter from Surrender. He had the curve that works so nicely in order to swing back the board of Desert Spear into the Faceless Corruptor. Even though that was disrupted by a freeze, still the Varanus was good enough to close things out. I do generally agree with you that it is favored for the Demon Hunter rather than the Highlander Hunter overall. And I feel like Posesi is less likely to make one of those weird blunders where he goes too aggressively and ends up losing because of it.
Agreed. I think Posesi is a very considered player, and the times that he does get his foot off the brakes and go all face, it is definitely warranted. And the opener is already looking great for him. Battle Mage into Umberwing. That's the type of minions that you want to fight back against what Ryvius has, also a very good curve.
Yeah, very, very nice indeed. It's, again, one of the things I was talking about, where you don't want to keep the mediocre cards, you want to look for the very, very good cards indeed. I feel like Fairy Dragon just about falls into that. Oh, that's just Dwarven Sharpshooter.
So I'm liking the look of Sharpshooter now, even though it potentially
Same.
dies to just an Umberwing trade in the worst case scenario. Best case for Ryvius is maybe Posesi only hero powers, in which case Ryvius can just follow up with Desert Spear into Animal.
But oh my goodness, it's just gone from good to better here for Posesi. The State Overseer is insane.
It's true.
The only card keeping Ryvius in the game at all here is the Desert Spear, Gia. It is going to be crucial in swinging back the board.
It is his best possible response here, and something like, exactly, Leok could be a very huge deal here to buff up to focus. Let it trade into the Overseer.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even Huffer wouldn't be all too bad to just take the trade.
Yep. And you know what? Even if it's Misha, at the very worst,
Sure.
Ryvius can just double trade into this. But this, I think, is the absolute best case scenario to secure off 2 minions and still end up with a well-positioned board.
Very happy with that.
Quite awkward now for Posesi, because if he wants to just play the Kayn, which he kept in the mulligan, it involves double trading to get rid of Leok, and if you leave it up, then you know that Ryvius is just gonna summon another 2-1 rush for free. I don't think the argument for I-Beam Hero Power is good enough.
I think
that's the Spectral side for one draw.
Yeah, I like the Kayn on this turn as well. It's really just whether or not you go face for me on this turn, because with Metamorphosis in hand, even though you are accepting that they're going to trade the Locust into your 2-2, you can just start going really aggressively for lethal.
I was actually expecting Posesi to go face there, but what this does is that just the Desert Spear alone can't deal with the Kayn. So many opportunities for Ryvius here. I don't think that he has time to play the Felma anymore.
Really? So what are you expecting on your opponent's turn? I think the most likely answer is Warglaves, in order to try and play around here. To which Bone Wraith is pretty good, to be fair. It's a lot of awkward health totals to be worked through by a Warglaves.
I was gonna say, I think you just Bone Wraith here, even though it doesn't have taunt in the face of Kayn. It sets up a sticky minion, for which he can then follow up with more, I think, easier trades. Whether it's Zephyrus to give you removal for Warglaves this turn, I think that's fine for him. And then just Fairy Dragon with Primordial Explorer. I think that this just makes the most awkward minion for Posesi to deal with.
It was a very deliberate choice there by Posesi to play the Spectral Sight first, because he could have, of course, gone Battle Fiend, then I-Beam, and then gone for the Spectral Sight in order to unlock the I-Beam for 1 mana. It didn't line up that well, to be fair, so I can definitely understand why he'd go for this line instead. And he's rewarded.
Here is a huge deal, because Ryvius really wanted those extra bits of 1 damage to augment the 2 attack he already has on this Bone Wraith.
And I think if ever there was a time to get crazy with the Shadow Madness, now is that time.
Oh, yes.
7 damage at least that you are stopping and reactivating the taunt. We like the look of that.
And the buff to Shadow Madness is just stealth huge. I mean, we didn't immediately see its effects in the weeks that the buff came into play, but now the card has just made Priest a very strong class and been a buff to Zephyrus as well.
Yeah, just all the small buffs to Priest. The fact that Thought Steal, Shadow Madness, and Shadow of Death are all just kind of insane cards now. All together equal a very powerful class.
And now, because the Bone Wraith was not touched by Posesi, it's suddenly so problematic because he doesn't have Kayn anymore to potentially top deck and ignore it. He has to send quite some damage into it.
He really does. And just look at the difference in playstyle that we are already seeing here from Posesi and Chonsu. Posesi's been trading. And to be fair, maybe this is part of Chonsu's thought process. He went through testing and realized if you trade, you don't really win, because now this is looking disastrous for Posesi.
It really does. He's probably going to be sending another charge of the Metamorphosis into the Dragonbane. It is just threatening too much damage. Or we could see the Warglaves triple tank and I-Beam it down. But either way, he's not left with enough damage to close out the game in his favor. I think Posesi's best out is try and survive, hope that they don't have a Premier turn 7, just cover this Bran up, Derek, it's not there, and then top deck Skull.
Okay, that seems as good a plan as any, Gia.
Time grows short.
The waves all together. Let's just give him the most board presence. You know what? this is the best in going into a Dino Tamer brand, because Ryvius doesn't want to trade into these at all. Still though, not enough to get there for lethal on the next.
I guess this does mean that Dino Tamer Brand is not instantly GG. Actually, with the Desert Spear, it does. I was going to say you could take it out with the I-Beam and both the minions and then start to heal up. But with the fact that the King Crush can survive for another turn, I am struggling to see a way out of this one.
Well, he could survive from his perspective just by healing up. But it involves trading as well, because if he takes the 2, then he's dead to 0 power. Yeah, there is no nice way to go about this. Even if Posesi takes the trade so that he survives on board, there's just no top deck that can actually turn the game in his favor.
Yeah.
So yet again, we're gonna see Highlander Hunter take a win over Demon Hunter.
I grow impatient.
We are indeed. It is just about locking down that early game, or at least just staying even in the early game for the Highlander Hunter, which of course Ryvius absolutely did, keeping the curve of 2, 3, 4 in the mulligan, even if he didn't end up using the Fairy Dragon at all. I think is just, clear that he knows exactly what you're trying to do. Play out your strongest minions every turn and pray that that gets there.
Oh, Posesi's actually found a way to deal with the King Crush without face tanking it.
Fair enough.
That's impressive. We'll give him that.
Oh,
Oh man.
Freeze is insane.
Still no way to win the game for Posesi, even if he wasn't frozen there, I think. Got a skull off the top.
Oh, skull.
Maybe there was a way if he weren't frozen.
Yeah, no more I-beams now.
Yeah.
None of this is doing anything. If he hits a freeze, then he can stay alive.
Hey, I got you, friend.
Which is something.
Now he has to play the twin slices to get the outcast. But
Yep.
not doing anything.
I see.
And it's going for the single drop.
For now.
Doesn't do it though. One game apiece now between Posesi and Ryvius. Closer than I thought it was going to be at the end there. But for Ryvius, it was just the fact that he was able to keep up so much tempo in the mid-game, turn things around so quickly. And for Posesi, while I still disagree with Chonsu's plays from the early game, it does speak a little bit more to his thought process, where you do want to go as aggressive as possible in the matchup, because once they hit turns 6, 7, 8, the Hunter just starts to outvalue you.
I think that this is particular of Hunter compared to other Highlander classes at the meta right now, Mage and Rogue. I think that versus those classes, Demon Hunter can have some license to just ignore their board and go face, because they oftentimes can't pressure you enough for the counter lethal, and you can afford to concede board at that point. But against Highlander Hunter, I think there is far too much potential for them to swing back board in their favor and present counter lethal in 1 or 2 turns from the time you are actually trying to go for lethal. So it does make more sense to me, Posesi's line of play. But the other thing I want to point out is that in both of the games where Highlander Hunter was able to take the win over Demon Hunter today, it was heavily reliant on Desert Spear. That card just pulls so much weight in this matchup.
Yeah, it is just right up at the top there in terms of the mulligan win rate for pretty much all the classes, especially the heavy tempo-based ones like Demon Hunter.
We are just going to go into the mirror now.
Oh yes, into the known here for these two players, with fairly equal curve as well. Actually, weirdly enough, Umberwing into 3-drop, but I'm just seeing here, Gia, so many times over and over the power of Frozen Shadow Weaver. I keep mentioning it, but I just can't get over it. It's insanely good in the matchup.
It really is. We're already going to see, I think, Posesi just play the sidekick on 1. We see this a lot of the time, that Demon Hunter players in the mirror, even if you don't get the ideal 1-drop, it makes such a big difference to be able to play the 1-drop. And the curve just speaks for itself, right? He's got 1, 2, 3, coin 5.
Yep. And does that therefore mean, with all his mana spoken for, that he should just play out the beaming sidekick here?
Right. I absolutely think so. And you say that this mirror is into the known, but I feel that every time I watch it, I'm still learning something a little bit new, especially now that players are including Worgen infiltrators. As you said, adds another texture.
Yeah, Ryvius has been a big fan of the Worgen infiltrator with his build of the Highlander Hunter that was teched to beat Demon Hunter, so I guess it's less surprising that he was able to take the win there. But now, of course, the expected and only real play available to Ryvius coming down here.
You already can see opportunity for deviation from Posesi here. Obviously, the freeze is a lot less impactful now that the Satyr already came down and got its activation. So
Yeah.
for Posesi, could we just see him go for the counter Satyr?
I think for me, the line that I prefer, because we still have the possibility to go coin glaive bound, is to freeze the face, double trade into the Overseer, and then the only real way that they are able to trade up into your own 4/3, your freeze, is if they have I-Beam.
That's true. I might be overthinking this, but that also leads into the response glaive bound.
True.
But that is far ahead into the future. I think for the right now, this makes a lot of sense for Posesi.
I like this play a lot.
Are we feeling the 4-mana Bloodfen Raptor?
We are indeed. Oh no, sorry. Let's play it for the more usual 2 mana, just to feel a little bit more at home.
I hate floating mana though. This feels worse to me. It really does, there.
It's like, are you in Quest Druid, are you a coin quest or a quest coin gamer? There's only one correct answer.
Oh yes. It's quest point.
Of course. But now, Posesi, Frozen Shadow Weaver off the top is a huge draw
man.
and allows for another deviation here, because he is, of course, thinking very adeptly so that Adept is the most likely play from his opponent on this turn, and he can just shut it out again. And for another turn, Ryvius can do nothing. Metamorphosis is the best he's got, and he is going to have to tank an absolute boatload of damage.
It is crazy how much the Shadow Weaver shuts off on the crucial turn 5.
Yep.
Warglaives also unavailable there, and Posesi, having saved the coin this whole time, can just still coin out Hero Power and play Glavebound if he wants to.
This is a little bit of a closer one, because I'm seeing a lot of different lines that could be gone for here.
Yeah.
Metamorphosis coin Hero Power is something I'm actually considering on this turn, but I guess that would mean that you can't go Glavebound next turn, because you're 1 mana short of reactivating the Hero Power. So maybe it's just Kayn?
Yeah, I think Kayn Hero Power is the responsible play here. Just because of the shape of Kayn, right? The 5 health makes it so that Ryvius can't simply Glavebound it down. But then again,
has the hero power.
He could Hero Power it down. And he still has the weapon for activation of Glavebound.
No matter what you do, you're pretty much looking at a full board clear. The only way to stop that is actually Satyr Overseer, which is such a weird play here that's so mana inefficient compared to the other lines.
I think we've reached the point in the game where mana inefficiency is not as important as preventing the biggest swing.
Right.
I think this is so brilliant from Posesi.
He's thought through it all, and he realized 5 damage from the Hero Power, 4 damage from the Adept, and the 1 from the weapon. Every other line is way too weak for that. And he spots the one play that leaves him with something on board. This is genius.
This is so good. I'm so happy to see this. We saw the European and American casters raving about Gallon versus Bloody Face. Posesi can go toe-to-toe with those guys any day of the week.
Impatient.
Yeah, I like that the drama and the pressure is getting to a lot of these players, but I also am a big fan of an extremely high-level series of Hearthstone, which has been inconsistent here in the APAC, it's fair to say.
Right. For Ryvius, though, I think he's still got to go for the line that we were suggesting. It's not awful. It leaves up a 2-2. He takes 4 damage in the process, but it technically puts him ahead on board. The other option of Warglaives just takes way too much damage. Can't afford it.
But if you go for that and you get glaive bounded in response, you're just so far behind again.
Is he in a position where he can afford to play around Posesi's best play, though? I think Posesi thought that he was in such a good position that he could afford to go off curve and play around Ryvius' best play. But now Ryvius just has to hope that the answer isn't there.
And to be fair, he still has the second half of the hero power in order to take out the Glavebound, so it's not the end of the world here for Ryvius. He just needs to be making sure he doesn't take too much more damage, because just straight up pressure is Ryvius' biggest enemy here.
Is there
I
any
grow
opportunity for
impatient.
Posesi to go about this the other way around? Say if he goes Metamorphosis now,
Yeah.
he can clear off the Glavebound if he wants, but there's also the option to just send it all face.
My thinking for the reason to go Metamorphosis trade is it still keeps you ahead on board. I mean, unless you're setting up lethal on the following turn with just Metamorphosis face, which
He is.
I guess you are.
Yeah.
Then you're only playing around I-Beam? Is that worth playing around?
There's I-Beam and Freeze, because if Posesi's face gets
True.
frozen, he can't attack
True.
the Glavebound.
Probably a little
Wargraves
bit
is the
too
one-
much overall.
This is the one I was not looking at, but this achieves face damage while also removing Glavebound. I don't think it sets up turn.
It does if nothing is cleared off.
Sure, but you can see the hero power at the very least.
But then again, if that happens, then it's a hero power into a 2/2.
True, you're very happy with that.
Yeah.
So this line also, I guess the only big punish is I,
Demons?
similar to the other lines.
Demons.
I think Ryvius has to start to draw here to look for just that.
Ooh. And now all of a sudden he can freeze face and just go on the aggressive here.
He can. He can freeze face, attack into this 2 to develop his Worgen, shoot face. He's presenting 6 damage on board. He's got Warglave's Twin Slice.
In the shadows.
He's
Does
threatening
actually
counter
get there.
lethals.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Posesi!
This is
I've
the
never
punish for
seen him
Posesi's line.
be so emotive. Love to see it.
He tanked 6 damage on the previous turn instead of going for the Glavebound here.
And Ryvius ships the 2 damage face, knowing that
Do you see what must be
the game is probably over next game. Next round already. So he might as well take the 2 damage where he can. But the clear is available for Posesi.
Oh, gee, it's so close.
It really is, but he just doesn't get there anymore. There's no way to remove without taking damage, and there's so much damage on the backswing for Posesi as well.
Yeah. It was a nice line to go for with the Altruist there to clear off the board and putting on as much pressure as possible.
Seeing less and less of Ryvius' face. And he throws it down in what I have to say is probably my favorite Demon Hunter mirror I've seen all season.
Yeah, that was just absolutely on the razor's edge there on all sides. It's so hard to know exactly how to sequence all those late game turns when you have five mana powerful plays, be it the Glavebound, the Metamorphosis, or the Warglaves, all of which have their merits and their downsides. I feel like the line that Posesi went for, even though they were all fairly weak to the freeze, that was the most vulnerable to the freeze out of all the plans because he tanked the damage and didn't develop anything onto the board.
Yes, the other line of Glavebound, the Glavebound, means he doesn't take the damage and only one target gets frozen. He didn't have the weapon equipped at that point, so that would potentially present a dilemma for Ryvius to actually maybe not freeze face for once, but it was really that turn where it looked like such an obvious Glavebound, but he floated mana, went for the Overseer that I thought was so good.
Yeah, I just loved pretty much everything I saw there, especially in the early turns. The setup from Posesi of going for the Frozen Shadow Weaver on 3, and then again going for it on 4, and then setting up, as you said, for the Overseer. It was keeping exactly in his mind that the read on the Glavebound Adept was there, and he played around it so well every single turn. I think that was a very well-deserved win.
Indeed. And well played from Ryvius as well. I think that there's a lot that goes wrong when you get frozen 2 turns in a row. It often feels like there's no way to get back the tempo from that point. But Ryvius really brought it down to the wire, and he will get another shot with Demon Hunter.
But first of all, Gia,
yeah,
we have to go to our good old favorite, our old friend, the Druid Mirror, of which there is at least something more interesting to talk about here than the usual do you hit Glowfly. Ryvius is playing Starfall, but as it currently looks, that's not even going to be a consideration because he is going to be the first player to hit that Glowfly.
Yep, this looks like the first time in a million years where I've seen a Japanese player not get a good hand with Druid.
Yep, I'll agree with you there. And it is a pretty insane hand for Ryvius. The growth into Glowfly into shortly thereafter a pretty insane Mount Seller. It's devastatingly strong.
I have no arguments whatsoever. Posesi can go for his Overgrowth into Mount Seller. But Ryvius will just have time to play Glowfly first, and he's got Roar.
So if we're looking at Bog Beam off the top, or Innovate in order to get out the Crystal Power, maybe Posesi can clear off enough?
Yeah, that would be very, very big here. Oh, is that Iron Bark? Nope.
Nope. So on one minion, in order to...
I don't think you do that. If you're just going Mount Seller, Bog Beam clear 1 minion, why not just Fungal Fortune's Crystal Power 1 minion? You could potentially clear more.
Okay. And then
up for a bigger swing.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay, let's count damage. Savage Roar is not lethal if he removes 1 minion. Oh, he could even go Roar Crystal Power to remove 2 and still fit in the Fungal Fortunes if you like. Yeah, I really like this.
Time waits for no one.
Seller.
Okay, it's not the end of the world. He still is setting up for an incredibly powerful Mount Seller turn next turn. And given that Ryvius is only here looking at, what, 23 damage? It's still in with a chance here for Ryvius.
For Druids these days? Oh, wow. Is he committing even more, knowing that he'll get, if he wants to, 3 spells next turn? I am not entirely sure about that.
Me neither.
It is so hard to evaluate the average Mount Seller minion because the difference between a taunt or a rush and none is near infinite.
Yeah, I love this from Ryvius as well, getting down the Mount Seller, because one thing we often forget, it's a 5/8. It's just a well-statted minion on its own. And even with the measly hair, this should still be getting the job done.
Alright, 2 Diving Griffins could deal with that Mount Seller. No more, no less. I haven't seen a Griffin in forever. What's going on?
And you're not going to see one today, as Ryvius is going to very handily indeed equalize the score here at 2 games apiece for Savage Roar to end things out. It is the only way it feels like that the Druid Mirror can go, where one player hits the early Glowfly and the other player does not.
It does, but the chance Posesi gave himself, I think, by going for Fungal Fortunes on that turn, not settling for just Mount Seller 1 Bog Beam, was significant. Had he drawn Innervates, we could have seen potentially a much bigger swing. I'm just unsure as to whether he had to expend that Bog Beam the turn that he did, if he was going for the big high roll swing, which I feel is his best path to victory.
I agree. I think he definitely just kind of panicked at the end there and was thinking, is there any way that I die? Double Savage Roar, I think, would have killed him exactly, or just a little bit over, but he would have died to double Savage Roar. But I don't really think you can be afford to play around double Savage Roar there, because you are so far behind anyway. Right. And just a Power of the World plus Savage Roar wasn't ending the game. So I think it was just a case of, in the moment, you have to make a snap decision, and he made overall probably not the correct one.
Yeah. And that is the type of mistake that we infrequently see from Posesi, if any at all.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of carelessness and maybe a little bit of panic. And that does mean that we're gonna see the Druid versus Demon Hunter for Game 5. This is the matchup where if you're in Asia Pacific, apparently not all too bad for the Druid, but last series we did see Shansu absolutely give Surrender a beating.
We did, and the list for Posesi, I think, is in no way especially teched for the Demon Hunter. It doesn't have the Ysera in the late game, which means he can run a little bit more of the mid game, but I think that really comes in the form of an extra Savage Roar rather than any extra removal. So overall, I think he's just as likely as you think Demon Hunter or Druid is against Demon Hunter, which with a hand like this is, I'm going to say, pretty favored.
Yes, the coin innervate Glowfly. We talk about this so much. The difference between turn 3 and turn fly Glowfly Swarm is just massive.
Yes.
I mean, being able to swing back the board that fast and then capitalize on whatever minions are remaining, that can be Druid's ticket to victory. My question here is whether Overgrowth gets kept.
Well, I'm wondering if exotic Mount Seller gets kept along with the Overgrowth.
Okay.
I know it seems slow, but it is a very powerful curve. And unless Demon Hunter hits an insanely aggressive start, it probably will be enough to pull you back into the game.
It does just curve out, right? Turn 3, Coin Innervate Glowfly. Turn 4, Overgrowth. And then turn 5, Mount Seller.
Yeah.
But
you're running low on spells then?
Exactly.
Is that really consistent overall? Has it got to be one half or the other?
Okay, I thought he triple cut. Wait, also an Innervate. That is shocking to me.
I guess he's just all out on the fungal fortunes.
The fires of vengeance burn bright.
But if you expect to mostly be drawing spells anyway, isn't that still, what, even without fungal fortune, 6 Glowflies? 5 or 6?
Hey,
turn
I
3?
got you, friend.
Yeah.
A lot.
I mean, I have been advocating for keeping Innovate quite often when players haven't liked it overall. Again, they just have, in this practice group of the Japanese players, it feels like such a strong commitment to only looking for fungal fortunes when you have the Glowfly.
I mean, got it anyway.
But he got it anyway. And a complete skip on turn 3 does give Posesi the leeway that he needs in order to start rolling with this Glowfly.
Most likely 5 Glowflies still available. He's gotta do it, right?
Unless he thinks the play is
Hero Power?
Savage Roar this turn, or yeah, I mean, I guess Hero Power just does the same thing to take out the Worgen.
What to do?
I think there's an opportunity to deviate from the turn 3 Glowfly purely because Ryvius' turn 3 was so weak. But what if there is just Satyr Overseer Hero Power on the next turn suddenly?
He would have just played it. You just play it there. You're not floating a whole 2 mana just because they might remove your Overseer.
That's true.
I think the thing here is for Posesi is he has a read that there's no good 3-drop, and the only good 4-drop in the deck is Kayn, which unfortunately for him is exactly what Ryvius has.
Right. But Ryvius doesn't have the lethal setup right now.
Mm-hmm.
One Twin Slice could be huge though. Because of both Altruist and Glavebound.
Oh! Warglaves can clear
That is a
almost
big one as well.
entire board, Gia. That is devastating.
Posesi doesn't have follow-up. He doesn't have card
nothing.
draw.
He's got nothing left.
Oh my gosh, just 2 flies in a dream. And ramp into nothing?
Ramp into Ironbark, but there's the Kayn there. It doesn't even taunt.
He probably still just takes it, right? The free development.
Ironbark double
Overgrowth,
trade.
Ironbark. Are you trading? I'm looking at Innervate, Power of the Wild. Okay, you can take 1 value trade in that, but maybe the.
I mean, you have to kill Kayn, right? Because otherwise the taunt doesn't do anything.
True. Probably just dead on the backswing.
What to do?
Oh my goodness.
He's going for absolute maximum clearage here.
Could he not have done this with Vate Overgrowth? Because then the Iron Bark would have been free.
Yeah, I think you're correct.
I guess that makes certain potential draws a bit weaker. Blowfly and Mount Stellar. But
Not really, though. Yeah, I think your
wow.
play was just better.
It did not come together here. Gotta use Savage Roar for clearing. There is no refill in sight. Ryvius can just go Hero Power, Glaive Bound if he wants, or Skull set up for an Altruist turn. Ryvius' top
only out here-
priority is being scared of Overflow.
Right, exactly. Overflow is the out now for Posesi, and as far as I'm seeing it, it is pretty much the only out here. Fungal Fortunes into the Overflow is also still a possibility with the Innovate.
Because of that, we're seeing Ryvius go for pretty much a Tempo Altruist again, just to make the best possible play awkward. Oh, Posesi is stressed. He's got one cycle available from this Wrath. It has to be Wrath into either Vate Overflow into Bog Beam to deal with this, or Fungal Fortunes into something similar. The Fungal! Ryvius is shaking his head. There's the Bog Beam!
He can stay alive?
He can't Hero Power this because he's frozen. He has another draw with Rising Winds if he wants. He can get Crystal Power, he can get Moonfire, he can get the other Bog Beam. Gotta go for the draw, right? There's just too many things he's dead to if he leaves either one of these up.
He's going to have to content himself with just clearing one, though, and praying that it is enough to stay alive. At the moment,
Ryvius,
it is.
But he can just go Skull. Big refill. Oh, big development too.
His weakness.
Posesi's still in it?
I mean, he needs the other Fungal Fortunes, I think. Like a single card draw off the top will not do it, even with this Mount Stellar.
I supply only the finest creatures.
Doesn't even have the mana to get to the Overgrowth fort cycle. Gotta be GG.
What? That's a taunt.
What? Wait, that... Huh? Wait, what?
What?
He just
He
thought
thought
that
it was
Bog
I-beam!
Beam! Oh no! Posesi, no!
Posesi! What are you doing, man? Oh!
I can see.
We know you would have died anyway, but... Oh, it is so painful to watch it go down that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to win a series of Hearthstone. And I gotta say to you, we're starting to see the unraveling of Posesi. This is 2 series in a row now where he has blundered the last turn of the game. Obviously, you know, we can see that it was over anyway, but from his perspective, he had a chance there, as slim as it may have been, in order to try and turn it around.
Yeah, had he just taunted his own Mount Stellar, that was a wall of a lot of health in the way, 11 health, and he had another taunt. He could have been dead to Metamorphosis, but you just cannot afford to be making mistakes like that. And you know what? This happened with Dawn versus Tyler, right? And Tyler did the flex. And I think it's fair to say it was not very obvious to Tyler how big of a mistake Dawn had made. It was very obvious to Ryvius there, and he just straight up... What a god.
What an absolute god. But it really speaks to me, to the overall story of Asia Pacific here, which is there's a kind of acceleration in terms of how well you're doing. The better you're doing, the better you're likely to do, because Glory, sitting at 4-0 now, he is under no pressure, no threat of relegation whatsoever. He is guaranteed in the top 6 at least of Division A now, even if he just continues to lose every single series. And because of that, the pressure's off. He doesn't have to worry so much about every single game. And therefore, he's playing better. We are seeing the players make these mistakes when they are right down to the wire and potentially looking at ending up down at the bottom, which for Posesi now, down to 2-2 and now 2-3, he is really starting to suffer at the feet of pressure, just not really being able to deal with this extra weight that's being placed on his shoulders.
It is very true. If we look at the standings in APAC compared to the other regions, we're seeing more of the extremes. We're seeing 4-0s and 0-4s,
Yep.
whereas I think Americas and EU, more so in Americas, everybody is drifting middle and the tiebreakers
Yep.
get even more scary. But with APAC, you're right. Momentum, whether it's uphill or downhill, is such a huge factor right now. And it just breaks my heart to see because Posesi, he played so well in the Demon Hunter mirror. I think that
Yeah.
was so well recognized the turn he went for the Satyr Overseer instead of Glaive Bound, even though it was off curve. But the way the Druid mirror ended, just so painful to watch.
It was so brutal overall. I don't want to take anything away from Ryvius, however. While we are obviously focusing on the more exciting part of Posesi taking the win, it was just a very solid week overall from Ryvius. He's bringing much more standard deck list, and I think just played an overall very standard, solid game of Hearthstone overall.
Yes, Ryvius, I think, could be on the upswing now. He was one of the players drifting towards the middle of Division A. Now has a better shot at possibly taking one of those Japanese players because I think Posesi was the one at 2-2 and he's now fallen to 2-3.
Indeed. But let's take a look at the schedule. I've been talking too long about that. It was such an exciting match for me. And I think it just really speaks to the overall themes that we have here in Asia Pacific. Blitzchung up against Tyler is going to be the next match here of the day. That's going to be a very good one indeed. Another instance of Blitzchung having a very weak start to Grandmasters in the Swiss portion, only featuring once in week 3 after he finished bottom 8 in the first 2 weeks, almost being able to go the full run to the finals in order to get to Division A, but falling down at the final hurdle. But it's got to be said, now that he is down in Division B, he has been absolutely crushing so far.
He has been on a tear, undefeated still, I think, though he hasn't played the maximum 4 matches that some of the players already could have had by this point, but everyone will even out at a 7 matches after the end of round robin versus Tyler, another player in Division